Hi everyone, this is Oscar versus Emily, Perth Chess Academy, Term 3, Round 1, Board 1. Let's go. E4, E5, so we've got a Greco piano, C3, so far so good. D3. I mean it's a line. I assume it's a book line. I just go opening book. Yeah, D3. Actually, D3 is the main line. I'm more used to D4, but okay, perfectly fine. Castles. We're still following book. D6. Knight D2. Oh, was that last move book? Yep. And now Bishop G4. So this is where we leave book right here. The engine doesn't like it. It's saying that white is now 0.6 of a pawn up, and it likes H3, which is what was played, and it likes B4. So what should black actually do here? If we just go to the openings book, A6 straight away seems to be the main move here. So this is where Emily should play A6. I'm not actually sure of the theory here. Let's see what happened though. Bishop G4, H3, and the bishop's got a bit of a problem to deal with. Usually if you play bishop here and it gets hit straight away, you're either running back here or you're grabbing the knight straight away. The engine likes bishop d7, it likes bishop h5, it even thinks bishop c8 is okay, but it certainly doesn't really want to put its bishop on e6, which is what happened. I think h5 is fine. I mean, you shouldn't worry about moves like g4. Quite often you can sack and it's quite fine. In fact, the engine is quite happy sacking the piece for 2 pawns here. And you always, when you do sack, you always want to sack with the knight, because afterwards the bishop takes and you've got this knight paralyzed. Can't move, it's pinned to the queen. And this king is wide open. And, and this pawn can start running down the board if it wants to, things like that. If you don't want to sack though, I mean, running back to g6 is also fine. I mean, this bishop doesn't seem like it's doing anything at the moment, but at some point you're going to want to play something like knight e7, c3, d5, and once you've got d5 in, you've got that double pressure on the e-pawn using your bishop. Often white will play a move like knight here and jump it into here to try and deal with this problem. It sometimes takes as well. Okay, so back here, bishop e6 was played, and yeah, I'm not a big fan of this move. I think maybe white should just take it and double black's pawns. It's true black will get a half-open f-file for his rook, but this e-pawn can be very, very uncomfortable to deal with. You know, things like knight here hitting the pawn. It can just be annoying trying to defend that sometimes. It does seem okay though. Here, yeah, knight g5 is one of the suggested moves here, and b4 is the other one. White decided not to take, but instead play bishop to b5, which I think this position's now equal. And and here, black should be looking at, just looking at maybe just hitting it straight away with a6 is the way to play this. But what was played was queen d7, just running straight into a pin, and that just doesn't look right to me. In fact, the engine immediately sees a win. In fact, yeah, I can see it too. White just wins a piece, I think, because the d4 hits the bishop and threatens the pawn fork at the same time. And not only pawn fork, but also trapping this bishop. So d4 straight out, and black is going to lose something. The problem is this knight isn't really attacking d4. It's not defending the d4 square because it's pinned. Sometimes you can play things like a6 and put a stop to these sorts of things, but the bishop can just take, and then you end up losing the bishop on c5. So back here, queen d7 just instantly just lost a piece. Yeah, just running into a pin, which allows d4. At the moment, d4 isn't possible because there's just 1, 2, 3 attackers on the d4 square, and d4 can't be played. But yeah, after queen d7, that's it. White wins a piece. Luckily for black, White missed it. White didn't see it. This is pretty standard tactic. Bang, bang, pawn fork. He played knight to g5, so that just lets black off the hook. Black now has to find a way to unwind the position and prevent this this nasty tactic. So rook e8 was played. I got a feeling h6 straight away would be the way to do it. Just hit the knight, force the knight to take back with the pawn, and now at least you don't lose a piece. I think white's position's more comfortable here, but still, there's plenty of play left in this game. So rook e8 was played, and yeah, is the threat still on? Bang, bang. So what if d4? What's the idea here? What does black play? According to the engine, takes after take. Oh, the knight's not defending the pawn, of course. You just grab the free pawn, yeah. Okay, so that's another reason. It didn't even occur to me. The knight moves to g5. The knight's not defending d4 anymore. So not only does knight g5 miss winning a piece, it actually takes that entire tactic off the table because you're no longer defending d4. Okay, so here... sorry, my computer's doing weird stuff. Okay. So here, just taking on e6, yeah, is probably best. And rook takes is fine because there's more than enough defenders on d4 at the moment. And now this knight goes to f3, and this tactic is now on again. Just looking back, the engine actually wants to play knight b3 or a4, stuff like this. I'm not entirely sure if it's that great. Queen f3 is also suggested. Knight f3 looks natural. It's just taking the knight, releasing the bishop, and threatening to win a piece. Bang, bang. It just looks good. So here black has to deal with this threat. Running the bishop back to b6 will solve that problem. a6, which is what was played, also solves the problem by hitting the bishop straight away. So the bishop drops back to a4. And yeah, once again, this d4 move needs to be dealt with. And I think the best way black can deal with that is just by smashing d5 straight out. d5 here, because the rook defends the e-pawn, and you're putting a lot of pressure on the e4 pawn. This looks good right here. d5, I think this equalizes. Although according to the engine, white's still better if white finds the right moves. Queen e2, for instance, is suggested. b4 once again. That's always being suggested. Every move, in fact. Bishop c2, which defends the e-pawn through the d-pawn. So d5 is what black should have played. That would have caused white to have to make a pretty tough decision as to how to proceed. Instead, black went and doubled the rooks on the e-file. But I mean, you're doubling into nothing here. You're running straight into your own pawn. When choosing which file to put your rooks on, you need a file that's actually going to open. And I don't see this e-file opening anytime soon. If anything, you want to get d5 in, and then maybe you can start looking to rook d8 maybe, and the other rook goes on to d6 if you can find a way to keep this pawn safe. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of this move. I think you're just doubling into nothing. And now I think that also, does it run straight into the pawn fork, or is b5 an issue? I don't know. Yeah, d4 looks good to me. Tactic is back on, because b5 can just be answered by a bishop retreat somewhere, and you're still going to get the pawn fork. You're hitting the bishop and threatening a pawn fork. So back here, right at this point here, white has win of a piece. The exact same tactic that was on the board many moves ago, just d4, d5. However, white missed it again. Unbelievable. I mean, this is like one of the most important moves in the position, when to get d4 in, and it's something white should be looking at every single move. Do I play d4 now? Do I play it now? Do I play it now? Just keep looking at it. Maybe he was deterred by the fact that after pawn moves, pawn takes, these rooks will be hitting the e-pawn, but who cares? You're winning a piece. White missed it and played bishop to g5, and sorry, my computer's doing weird stuff. Yep, okay. Bishop to g5, missed winning a piece. Now it's even again, and well, but it's still uncomfortable for black. How does black actually handle this? It's a bit of an issue. According to the engine h6, which is what was played, and then bishop ran back to h4. And now we have to deal with this d4 threat, and the way to do it has got to be d5. D5 once again, and even though white's position is more comfortable, you know, black's getting out of trouble just by eliminating that tactic, and is fighting for the center. And you know, if there's a trade on d5, this e4 push later on might become a problem, and these doubled rooks might actually be useful. So d5 once again has to be the idea. Wasn't played though. The bishop just dropped back to b6, which is another way of stopping d4, but d5 was obviously the way to do it. Now, yeah, bishop b3 is very strong. This rook is so uncomfortably placed. d5 once again needs to be played, but it looks like it might be losing a piece because you just remove the defender, just take on f6. Not losing a piece, losing a pawn, sorry. Yeah, this is big trouble for white. So well done to Oscar. He found bishop b3. He missed winning a piece two moves during this game, but yeah, bishop b3 strong. So this rook has just dropped back to e7, but I can't imagine this being good. This looks great for white. He can just wreck the pawn structure, which is what he did, and then run the knight out of the way of the queen. The knight's heading for the outpost on f5, and the queen's coming in and threatening mates after the knight jumps into f5. How to not lose this position is very tricky. Once the knight gets to f5 as well, there's also queen h5 and just taking the h6 pawn, or queen d2 and just taking the h6 pawn. And I don't see how any of this stuff can be stopped. This is devastating. And knight f5 threatens to just trap this rook, so we can at least win the exchange. So all the way back here, this is where black definitely needed to find d5. But I mean, even after d5, it's still looking very strong for white after takes, and just grabbing the free pawn here. It's at least black isn't a piece down. He can, and she can get some sort of counterplay. You know, rook g6 threatens to grab the h pawn, and yeah. Although I don't know where this knight's going. This knight's something maybe now to here and just chop off the bishop, and then you know maybe swing the rook to g6, looking to come into here. Maybe an e4 push later on. There's still play there for black. But had to play d5. Okay, so rook e7 was played, no takes, no h5. So black has gone and played rook here to try and create an escape square for this rook. Unfortunately, missing the even bigger threat, which is getting mated. So the knight's jumped into f5, and it's all over. It really is. The threat of just bang, bang, checkmate is just unstoppable. In fact, according to the engine, the best move for black is to sack the queen for the knight. That's how unstoppable all this is. So black threw the rook back, and yeah, and there we have it. Bang, bang, mate. And that's how white won the game. So yeah, white missed two piece-winning tactics this game, but found the harder moves to find. Very strong moves like bishop b3 later on. Black, yeah, you've got to get that d5 push in. If you can in these sorts of positions, if you can get d5 in, you generally take your worst position and you make it equal, which is really what white should have been looking to do. This game, neither player seemed interested in the key pawn breaks in the center, d4 and d5, and they're the two things that you should be focusing on every single move, trying to find that right opportunity to gain advantage or equalize, depending on who you are. Okay, I hope everyone learned something from that game. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you all later.